Hey guys, it's Amber from NotableInk.com, and I am here for Cut Cardstock today with a zentangle card that is inspired by the Inktober Tangles 2019 challenge. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that below, and I'll have all of the products listed below as well. I'm starting off by stamping a sentiment with permanent black ink. And I've been on a kick of adding strips of cardstock to my cards, and so I have some basis black cardstock here, and I've cut it into some strips, not even the same width of the strips. Some of them are more narrow, some are thicker. I'm just going to add 3 and overlap them, almost like you would with Hollabah. So if you kind of think of pickup sticks, that kind of thing, we just have some overlapping strips here, and I'm going to incorporate that into the design. I'm going to go ahead and trim that off from the back, and I'm using Royal Sundance Kraft cardstock for my card front that you can see here, and then as I said, the basis black cardstock for the strips. Both of those are from cutcardstock.com, and the Royal Sundance is on sale this month, so be sure to stock up if you need any of those. It's a nice natural fiber cardstock, and it has little flecks of those fibers in it, so there's lots of different colors in the range. So I am doing Arukus, or Arukus, however you want to pronounce it, and that starts off with a circle in the center, and then traditionally these spokes are straight, kind of like my strips of cardstock, but I wanted to add a little interest by curving some of those lines. So you start off with the circle, bring out your spokes, and then you aura or outline the circle after you've done your first row of spokes there. And you can see I'm doing the same thing with these strips of cardstock. I'm kind of treating them in the same fashion, where I'm just, as I do each layer of this pattern, I'm also going to add an outline to those strips of cardstock. So again, I'm going to outline both sides of these spokes, and then after I'm done outlining that, you'll see I'll come in and I'll outline the circle again. Now, as you do it in this layering fashion, it's going to create this woven effect, and you can add as many of these outlines as you like for your desired look. I think after this, I just add maybe one more layer, and then once again, I'm going to outline these strips again. I'm just realizing that 2 of my fingernails don't have polish on them, so sorry for that. I hope that's not too distracting. So as I'm outlining these strips of cardstock, once I get up to the area with the sentiment, I'm just going to run into that sentiment. So I'm just going to stop the line short of the sentiment and then pick it up on the other side. And I do 2 more layers of these outlines, so I'll skip over that and we'll go right into the shading. So here I just have a regular graphite pencil, just an everyday household pencil, and I am adding some shading to where these start to weave into the circle, and then also into those lines that outline the cardstock strips. So I'll do that all around the design, anywhere where I feel like there needs to be some shadow. I'm also going to shadow these. They almost have turned out like ribbons, the spokes. So the areas that I feel bend away from me, I'm going to add shadow to them. And then because we're working on the Royal Sundance Kraft cardstock, this gives us the unique opportunity to be able to add highlights as well. So if you're working on a white paper, you can't really utilize the white charcoal pencil as much as you can on a colored cardstock or a craft cardstock. So it's really fun to be able to work on the colored cardstocks for that reason. So I'll add some additional shading, and then we'll move on to the white charcoal. Here's the white charcoal pencil, and this is from the Generals company, and I have a paper stump there, and I just used the back end of the paper stump there because that was the one that I was using for the graphite, and then I will switch to another paper stump that I have reserved for white charcoal. So you want to make sure that you don't mix up your paper stumps because it will just muddy your white charcoal. You'll end up with gray. So make sure that you reserve a paper stump specifically just for your white charcoal. Here I'm going to go ahead and shade the orb that we have in the center just to give it dimension because it's starting to look super flat compared to the other areas now that we have some of the highlights in there. And I'll just build up the highlights and the shadows there. The cardstock strips were starting to look out of place, and I wanted to add greater contrast to these spokes, so I've just taken a Sakura Micron Graphic 1 pen. So this is a thicker pen, so it's much faster to fill in large areas. And I'm just going to fill that in to mimic those cardstock strips. And this will add greater contrast to the overall piece. So here I'm just going to add some shading and highlights to the areas around the cardstock and around the sentiment here. And that's going to help to draw the eye into the sentiment. I also wanted to add some additional contrast over on the right, so I decided to fill in that inner triangle in the outlines around the cardstock strips there. And then again, adding some highlight and then also some shadow to those areas as well. After all of the shadows and highlighting was done, I went ahead and cut another piece of the basis black cardstock, just slightly larger, about 1/8 of an inch larger all the way around, and matted this piece. I also used black cardstock for the card base. And the last thing that I did was create an envelope with the Royal Sundance Kraft cardstock. And here's the finished piece. I always think that black, craft, and geometric designs are great for masculine cards. So this is a great idea if you're looking for a masculine type card. And I always enjoy the opportunity to share Zentangle for card makers, really blending my love of card making with Zentangle together and sharing it with you guys. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you soon with more inspiration. Until then, breathe, ink, inspire.